Hey there, and welcome to Tales by June, where hearts break, heal, and sometimes seek revenge. Let's begin today's story.
Hey, before we begin, let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. I still remember the first time I met him. It wasn't anything dramatic, no slow motion glances or cinematic music, just a quiet Tuesday morning in the college library. I was sitting by the window, my laptop open, typing up notes for psychology class when he sat across from me. His hair was messy, his hoodie creased, and there were faint circles under his eyes. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. "Hey," he said softly, pushing his charger toward me. "Do you mind if I plug in here? The other outlets are taken." I looked up, blinked once, and nodded. That's how it started. Small, unnoticeable, like a whisper that somehow becomes a song you can't stop hearing. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other more often. In the library, in the cafeteria, at the bus stop after class. He'd wave, I'd smile, and little by little, those short moments became conversations. He was funny in a quiet way, someone who listened more than he spoke. We talked about everything, how he hated group projects, how I loved rainy days, how both of us dreamed of doing something that mattered. He studied computer engineering. I was majoring in psychology. He used to joke that I'd end up analyzing his every move one day. My parents liked him. Mom said he had kind eyes. Dad said he seemed grounded. We didn't rush into anything. It wasn't fireworks, it was warmth. The kind that builds up slowly until you don't even realize how much you need it. By the time we started dating officially, it already felt like we'd been together forever. Late night calls became our thing. We'd stay up until 2 a.m., talking about the smallest details of our day. When I was stressed about exams, he'd send me coffee emojis and motivational quotes. When he struggled with his projects, I'd sit beside him in the library, typing silently, just being there. He said once, "You make chaos feel calm." And I believed him. We became that couple people noticed around campus. The ones who studied together, laughed quietly in corners, shared sandwiches during breaks. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. His gaze would soften and he'd smile like I was the only thing in the world that made sense. And in those moments I thought, this is it. This is what love is supposed to feel like. I didn't know then that love could shift so suddenly, that warmth could turn cold without a sound. Back then, I still believed in forever. Our relationship found rhythm in the ordinary. Morning texts, shared coffee, study sessions, weekend movie nights. We didn't need big gestures. We found comfort in consistency. He'd wait for me outside my dorm every morning, leaning against the wall, earbuds in, one hand in his pocket. The moment he saw me, he'd smile, take my bag, and say, "Ready?" Always the same word, same smile. And somehow, that repetition made me feel safe. I used to think we understood each other without words. When he was upset, I could tell by the way his fingers drummed on the desk. When I was sad, he'd quietly slide chocolate across the table without asking questions. My mom used to tell me not to lose myself in someone else. I promised her I wouldn't. But maybe I did, little by little, not because he asked me to, but because I wanted to. Because when you love someone deeply, you start shaping your world around them without realizing it. I started studying where he studied, joined the clubs he liked, planned my weekends around his schedule. He never demanded it. That's what made it worse. He didn't have to. At night, when we were on the phone, he'd tell me about his dreams. Starting a company, traveling abroad, building something that mattered. "You'll be there too, right?" he'd say, and I'd laugh. "Of course I will." He was my best friend, my person, my constant. I trusted him with everything, my fears, my hopes, my heart. There were times we argued, like all couples do, small things. Me getting annoyed because he forgot our plans, or him getting quiet when I overthought something he said. But we always found our way back, always apologized, always forgave. Our love wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And in the small world we built together, I was happy. I didn't see the cracks forming then. I didn't notice how his texts started coming a little later, how his calls grew shorter, how his laughter sometimes sounded forced. Because when you love someone, you don't count the silences. You fill them with hope, and I did, every single time. The day she arrived, the air itself seemed different. It was late August, the first week of our third semester. The campus was alive again, students dragging suitcases, laughter echoing through the courtyard, the scent of fresh notebooks and coffee in the air. I remember spotting her near the main building. She stood out immediately. Bright yellow dress, hair tied up in a loose ponytail, confidence radiating from every movement. The kind of person who walked into a room and made it feel smaller. Everyone noticed her, including him. We were sitting on the campus bench, sharing fries, when she walked past. He looked up for a moment. Just a second too long. "Who's that?" he asked casually, like it didn't matter. I shrugged. "New student, I guess." He nodded, but his eyes lingered. I told myself it was nothing. That curiosity didn't mean anything. People look, it doesn't always mean they're seeing. But a few days later, he mentioned her again. "She's in my project group," he said, scrolling through his phone. "She's actually pretty funny." Funny. That was something he used to say about me. I smiled, tried to ignore the twist in my stomach. "That's nice," I said, and he didn't notice how my voice cracked just slightly at the edges. Weeks passed, and she became part of our world. At least his world. I started hearing her name more often in his stories. "She helped me with the presentation. She's got such good energy. She said something hilarious today. Wait, you should have heard it." He laughed differently when he talked about her. Freer, lighter, like there was sunlight behind every word. At first, I tried to be understanding. College was stressful, and he deserved new friends. I didn't want to be the jealous girlfriend. I told myself trust meant letting him breathe. But sometimes, late at night, I'd check his online status and wonder who he was texting so long after our call ended. I noticed how he started replying to me later and later. How his good morning texts came afternoon. How our conversations, once filled with warmth, now felt like polite check-ins. Still, I stayed, because when you've built so much with someone, you don't walk away the moment something shifts. You wait. You hope. You remember the beginning and hold on to it like a lifeline. One evening, I found them together outside the cafeteria. They were sitting close, laughing about something only they understood. His hand brushed against hers, and she didn't pull away. I froze for a moment. My heart, my breath, everything. He saw me then. Our eyes met. He looked startled, then guilty, then nothing. Just blank. I smiled faintly, walked past them without a word. He didn't follow. That night, I didn't cry. I sat on my bed, phone in hand, staring at our old messages, thousands of them, filled with love, jokes, promises. I scrolled and scrolled until the words blurred, until I couldn't tell where we started or when we began to fade. And for the first time, I realized something painful but true. Sometimes, love doesn't end in a fight. It ends in silence. The next few weeks felt like watching my own life from the outside. He stopped calling at night. Our study sessions disappeared. He'd say he was busy, and I'd pretend to believe him. When we did meet, it wasn't the same. He'd check his phone mid-conversation. His smile never quite reached his eyes. Once, I brought him coffee before class, his favorite, caramel mocha with an extra shot. He took it, distracted. "Thanks," he murmured, already typing a message. I waited for him to look at me. He didn't. The quiet between us grew heavier with every passing day. I started focusing on my studies more, just to fill the emptiness. I joined a research group, spent hours in the lab, took on extra credits. It wasn't healing, it was distraction. But at least, distraction didn't leave me wondering why I wasn't enough. Then came the day I finally saw them. Not in passing this time. Together. It was a Friday afternoon. The sky was golden, students laughing, music from someone's speaker playing faintly. I was walking toward the library when I saw them near the fountain. He had his hand on her waist. She leaned close, whispering something that made him laugh, the same laugh that used to be mine. And just like that, I knew. There was no coming back from this. I didn't cry. Not a single tear. I just stood there, watching them for a moment that felt like forever. Then I turned away. My heartbeat steady, my face calm. Inside, though, something shifted. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. He had replaced me without hesitation. And now, I would replace the version of myself that needed him. That night, I deleted our photos, our messages, every trace of him that lived on my phone. It hurt. Every tap felt like tearing out a memory. But when I was done, I felt lighter. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. eyes swollen but determined, and whispered, "You replaced me once. Let's see how it feels when I rise higher than you ever dreamed." That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to disappear quietly. After that day by the fountain, I stopped waiting for his messages. No more late-night calls, no more glances in the hallway, hoping he'd notice me. He had made his choice, and for the first time I started making mine. I threw myself into my studies. Morning to night, my schedule was full. Classes, lab hours, research meetings. The library became my new world. I filled notebooks with color-coded notes, stayed up revising until the first light of dawn crept through the curtains. At first, I thought the silence would break me, but slowly it started to heal me instead. There was something strangely peaceful about focusing only on myself, on my goals, my growth, my dreams. My professors began noticing. "You've been improving," one said after class. "You've got potential. Keep this up." Those words used to mean little to me before. Now, they became my new source of validation. Still, I won't lie, there were moments when the loneliness hit hard. I'd see them together sometimes, walking across campus, her laughter bright like sunlight, his eyes following her like they once followed me. I'd look away quickly, pretending it didn't sting. But some nights I'd catch myself replaying old memories like an addict craving the past. The first time he held my hand, during a thunderstorm when the power went out in the library. We sat close in the dark, books forgotten, listening to the rain. He whispered, "You know, if I ever get lost, I'd want it to be with you." I laughed then because it sounded like something from a bad movie, but the way he said it, quiet, earnest, it melted me. I used to believe in that boy. The one who texted me, made it home safe every night. The one who waited outside my dorm even when it rained. The one who said I made chaos feel calm. But now, that version of him was gone, replaced by someone who looked the same but felt like a stranger. He didn't talk to me anymore. Not a word, not even a polite smile in passing. It was like he had erased me completely. And maybe that's why I worked so hard, to prove that I could exist without him. There was a strange satisfaction in earning my first A+ on a project presentation. My friends cheered, and for a moment I felt something powerful. I did this. Alone. I wasn't invisible anymore. Not to the world. And one day, not even to him. It happened on a bright afternoon, the kind that looks peaceful but hides sharp edges. I was in the cafeteria, sitting at my usual table, reviewing notes for an upcoming exam. My headphones were in, the world tuned out. Then I heard my name, softly at first, then followed by laughter. When I looked up, I saw her, the new girl. She was surrounded by a group of students, his friends. And he was there too, standing beside her, holding a tray. She was talking loudly, eyes gleaming. "I mean, can you believe she still studies in the same corner every day?" she said, smirking. So tragic, like a ghost haunting her own past. The group laughed. It echoed across the cafeteria like a cruel song. My eyes met his. For a second, I thought, he'll say something. He'll stop her. He'll defend me. He'll remember the girl who once stayed up with him all night, helping him rewrite his failed code before a major project presentation. But he didn't. He just looked at me and stayed quiet. And that silence hurt more than any words ever could. I could have cried. I could have walked out. But instead, I did something none of them expected. I smiled. Just a small, calm smile. I closed my notebook, removed my headphones, stood up, and walked right past them. Their laughter faded as I passed. He turned slightly, maybe wanting to say something, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back, because I realized something in that moment. They could laugh all they wanted, but I was no longer part of their world, and I didn't need to be. That night, I went back to my dorm, opened my laptop, and began writing my application for a university fellowship. It was competitive, prestigious, and nearly impossible to get. But for the first time in a long while, I wanted something just for me. As I wrote, flashes of our past kept slipping into my thoughts. The time we made pancakes at 2 a.m., the time he taught me to ride his bike and I nearly fell, the way he used to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear when I was nervous. It hurt, remembering, but it also reminded me of how deeply I'd once loved, how capable I was of giving, of believing, of feeling. And I promised myself that if I could love someone like that, I could love myself even more. So I poured everything I had into that application, my story, my dreams, my resilience. By the time I hit submit, The tears I hadn't shed earlier finally came. But this time, they weren't for him. They were for the version of me who had survived him. Time passed. Not fast, not slow, just steady, like healing often is. By winter, I was no longer the girl who cried herself to sleep. I was the girl who stayed late in the lab, who led group projects, who got invited to present research at a national conference. The same professors who once barely remembered my name now called me an example of discipline. Some nights, when I walked home under the yellow streetlights, I'd think of how far I'd come. Not from anyone else, but from myself. I didn't see him much anymore. He and the new girl were still together, at least for a while. They were the couple everyone noticed, loud, dazzling, wrapped in the glow of attention. But I learned to look past them. Instead, I made new friends. People who saw me not as his ex or the quiet girl from the library, but as me. They laughed with me, studied with me, shared late-night snacks in the dorm kitchen. For the first time in years, my happiness wasn't tied to anyone else's name. One morning, I got an email that made my heart stop. Congratulations! You have been selected for the Global Research Fellowship in Cognitive Studies. It was real. Months of work, countless sleepless nights, it all came down to that single line. I was going abroad for 6 months, representing the college. I remember sitting on my bed, the sunlight spilling through the curtains, whispering, I did it. It wasn't about proving anything to him anymore. It was about proving something to myself. A week later, I was called on stage during the annual college ceremony. The auditorium was packed, students cheered, cameras flashed, the dean said my name with pride. From the corner of my eye, I saw him in the crowd. For a fleeting second, our eyes met. He didn't look away this time. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between surprise and regret. But I smiled, bowed, and walked off stage without waiting for applause to die down. That night, I slept better than I had in years. It happened a few days before I was set to leave for the fellowship. I was packing my books into a small suitcase when there was a knock on my dorm door. I opened it, and there he was. For a moment, time folded back. He looked the same, yet older somehow. The spark in his eyes was dimmer. The confidence that once drew everyone in now seemed cracked at the edges. Hey, he said softly. Can I come in? I hesitated, then nodded. He stood in the middle of the room, hands in his pockets, looking around like every corner held a ghost. This place hasn't changed much, he said with a faint smile. Some things don't need to, I replied quietly. There was silence. Then he said, We broke up. I didn't say anything. He went on. I know you don't care, but I just wanted you to know. I messed up. He paused, struggling for words. I hurt you. I let someone else come between us when you were the only person who ever really cared about me. His voice cracked. I should have stopped her that day in the cafeteria. I should have fought for us. For you. I was stupid, and I'm sorry. For a long moment, I just looked at him, and in that moment, I realized I didn't feel anger anymore, or longing, or pain. Just peace. I waited for that apology for a long time. I said softly, I used to imagine what I'd say if you ever came back. He looked at me, hopeful. And now? Now, I said, I don't need it anymore. He looked stunned. I smiled faintly, stepping closer. You taught me something important, I continued. That love can change, that people can change, and that sometimes letting go is the kindest thing we can do for ourselves. He swallowed hard. Can we at least be friends? I shook my head gently. No. We can be memories. That's all. He opened his mouth to say something more, but I took a deep breath, walked to the door, and held it open. Goodbye, I said, not bitter, not broken, just calm. He hesitated, eyes glistening. Then he nodded, whispered, Goodbye, and walked out. I closed the door slowly. The click of the latch sounded final and freeing. For a few seconds, I leaned against the door, eyes closed, breathing in the quiet. Then I smiled. Outside, the sky was turning pink with evening light. I turned to my packed suitcase, picked it up, and whispered to myself, This is my new beginning. As I stepped out of the dorm, I didn't look back once. The campus that once held my heartbreak now held my victory. And somewhere deep inside, I knew. I had finally become someone who didn't need to be anyone's world to feel whole. Sometimes the most beautiful stories aren't about the people who stay. They're about the ones who learn to walk away. With grace, with strength, and with a heart still open to love.